The most disturbing aspect of this case isn't that a man vanished without a trace in broad daylight. It's that Owen Parfitt was completely paralyzed from the waist down and physically incapable of moving on his own. Yet, he disappeared in minutes, while multiple witnesses had a clear view of the area and saw absolutely nothing. Viewer discretion is advised. If you're fascinated by historical mysteries and impossible disappearances, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel with notifications turned on for more incredible stories like this one. The year was 1763, and the small market town of Shepton Mallet in Somerset, England, was the kind of place where everyone knew everyone else's business. With a population of fewer than 2,000 souls, it was a community where strangers were immediately noticed, where daily routines were as predictable as the sunrise, and where the most exciting events were typically the weekly market days when farmers and merchants gathered to trade their goods. In this quiet corner of rural England lived Owen Parfitt, a 60-year-old former sailor whose weathered face and gnarled hands told stories of a life spent on the high seas. But those days of adventure were long behind him. A series of strokes had left Owen completely paralyzed from the waist down, transforming the once robust mariner into a frail, dependent man who required assistance for even the most basic tasks of daily living. Owen lived with his sister in a modest cottage on the outskirts of Shepton Mallet, surrounded by the rolling green fields and ancient woodlands that characterize the Somerset countryside. Despite his physical limitations, Owen remained mentally sharp and possessed an inexhaustible supply of tales from his seafaring days. He would regale anyone willing to listen with stories of his adventures on the high seas, tales that grew more elaborate and fantastic with each telling. According to Owen's own accounts, his maritime career had been far from conventional. He claimed to have been involved in piracy, smuggling operations, and even dabbled in what he mysteriously referred to as black magic during his travels to exotic ports around the world. Whether these stories were true or the product of an old sailor's imagination, they had earned Owen a reputation as something of a local character, a man whose past was shrouded in mystery, and whose tales were equal parts fascinating and unbelievable. On warm evenings, Owen's sister would help him outside to sit on the front porch of their cottage, where he could enjoy the fresh air and watch the world go by. This had become their daily routine during the summer months of 1763. Owen would be carefully positioned in his chair, wrapped in blankets despite the warm weather, as his condition left him unable to regulate his body temperature effectively. From his vantage point on the porch, Owen had a clear view of the surrounding countryside. Directly across from the cottage lay open farmland, where agricultural workers could be seen going about their daily tasks. The area was well traveled, with neighbors and passers-by frequently walking along the nearby paths. It was, in every sense, a public space where any unusual activity would be immediately noticed by multiple witnesses. On the evening of June 1763, the exact date remains disputed in historical records, with some sources citing 1768. Owen's sister followed their usual routine. As the sun began to set and the evening air grew cooler, she realized that Owen would need his coat to stay warm. She left him sitting in his usual spot on the porch and went inside the cottage to fetch his outer garment, a task that would take her no more than a few minutes. During her brief absence, the surrounding area remained active with witnesses. Farm laborers were still working in the fields directly across from the cottage, maintaining a clear line of sight to the porch where Owen sat. The workers later testified that they had seen the old man in his chair when Owen's sister went inside, and they continued to glance in his direction as they worked. When Owen's sister returned with his coat, she was accompanied by a young neighbor named Susanna Snook, who had come to help move Owen back inside for the evening. This was also part of their established routine, as Owen's paralyzed condition made it impossible for his sister to move him without assistance. Susanna was a reliable witness, known in the community for her honesty and practical nature. But when the two women stepped onto the porch, they were confronted with an impossible sight. Owen Parfitt had completely vanished. His chair sat empty, with no sign of struggle, no indication of how he might have been moved, and no trace of where he might have gone. The blankets that had been covering him were gone as well, adding to the mystery of his disappearance. The immediate reaction was one of confusion rather than alarm. Owen's sister and Susanna initially assumed there must be some logical explanation for his absence. Perhaps a neighbor had come by and helped him inside through a different entrance, or maybe he had somehow managed to move himself, despite his paralysis. But a quick search of the cottage revealed that Owen was nowhere to be found inside the house. Growing increasingly concerned, the women called out to the farm workers in the nearby fields, asking if they had seen anyone approach the cottage or if they had witnessed Owen being moved. The response was unanimous and deeply troubling. None of the workers had seen anyone approach the house during the brief time Owen's sister had been inside. More importantly, they had maintained visual contact with the porch area and insisted that no one had left the cottage carrying or assisting a paralyzed man. Word of Owen's disappearance spread quickly through the small community, and soon a search party had assembled. Neighbors, farm workers, and local officials combed the surrounding countryside, searching every possible location where a paralyzed man might have been taken or hidden. They searched barns, outbuildings, wooded areas, and even wells and ponds, fearing that Owen might have been the victim of foul play. The search continued for days, expanding to cover an ever-widening area around Shepton Mallet. Bloodhounds were brought in to try to pick up Owen's scent, but they found no trail leading away from the cottage. It was as if Owen Parfitt had simply ceased to exist the moment his sister stepped inside to fetch his coat. As the days turned into weeks with no sign of Owen, the community began to develop theories about what might have happened to the paralyzed sailor. Given Owen's colorful tales of his maritime adventures, some speculated that his past had finally caught up with him. Perhaps former associates from his alleged piracy or smuggling days had tracked him down to settle old scores or silence him permanently. Others in the deeply religious community believed that supernatural forces were at work. Owen's own claims of involvement in black magic during his seafaring days led some to conclude that he had been claimed by demonic forces as punishment for his past sins. In an era when belief in the supernatural was commonplace, this explanation seemed as plausible as any other to many residents of Shepton Mallet. The mystery deepened in 1813, nearly 50 years after Owen's disappearance, when construction work was being carried out near the site where the Parfitt cottage had once stood. Workers discovered a human skeleton buried in the area, and initial examination suggested it might be the remains of an elderly, crippled man. For a brief moment, it seemed that the mystery of Owen Parfitt might finally be solved. However, closer examination by medical experts revealed that the skeleton was actually that of a woman, not a man. The discovery raised new questions but provided no answers about Owen's fate. The skeleton's identity remained unknown, adding another layer of mystery to an already baffling case. In 1814, a lawyer named William Maskell decided to reopen the investigation into Owen Parfitt's disappearance. He interviewed surviving witnesses and reviewed all available evidence, hoping that the passage of time might have revealed new information or that witnesses might remember additional details. However, Maskell's investigation only served to highlight the contradictions and impossibilities surrounding the case. Today, more than 250 years after Owen Parfitt vanished from his sister's porch, his disappearance remains one of history's most baffling unsolved mysteries. Modern investigators have proposed various theories, from elaborate kidnapping plots to cases of mistaken identity. but none can adequately explain how a completely paralyzed man could disappear in broad daylight with multiple witnesses nearby. The case of Owen Parfitt challenges our understanding of what is possible and forces us to confront the reality that some mysteries may never be solved. Whether his disappearance was the result of human intervention, supernatural forces, or something else entirely, it serves as a reminder that the past holds secrets that continue to elude us, no matter how advanced our investigative techniques become. If you found this historical mystery as compelling as we did, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel with notifications turned on. We explore the most intriguing unsolved cases and mysteries from throughout history, bringing you stories that challenge our understanding of what's possible. Your support helps us continue investigating these incredible cases. Until next time, remember that some disappearances are so impossible that they transcend explanation, leaving us to wonder if there are forces at work in our world that we may never fully understand.